Welcome, everybody, to Sippin' and Shippin'. I'm your host, Brian Weinstein. We'll be kicking it here every other Friday, quenching your thirst for an insider's take to enhance your customer experience. So grab your drink of choice, kick back, it's Sippin' and Shippin' time. All right, welcome, everybody, to another episode of Sippin' and Shippin'. I am your co-host, Brian Weinstein, and I am here, I'd like to say as I always am, but I wasn't here a few episodes back or a couple episodes back, but I'm with Caitlin Postal.
Never going to let me forget it. It was one time I hijacked the pod. It's Women's History Month. We're happy to wrap it up here with our special guest and happy to have you back, like I said last time, Brian.
Yes. And you know what? I intentionally did that. That was passive aggressive. I called you Postal again and not Postal.
I know how I'll get her. I'll just call her name wrong. Give me Siri back. Give me the Siri pronunciation.
Exactly.
Don't target my Tarjay. Don't do that.
So this is our final episode of Women's History Month. And, you know, honestly, we've been talking, Caitlin and I and Tanya have been talking about, having this in March since way back last fall, getting ahead of something because, I am a girl dad. I am married to a woman who is a very strong, career-driven person. I've always surrounded myself with women of the same ilk. And I have to tell you, I'm really proud to be able to participate in this. I volunteered to have the hijacked episode, the episode Hijacked Away a few weeks ago. And I thought it was really cool to listen to the stories. And then we had Maya Benson on, who's a real boss lady, right? She came in, extremely impressive career. I'm just so proud of where we've come. I still think we have a long way to go, but I think the advancement of women in the U.S. has been incredible, and I'm really proud to see the people that have risen up. I'm proud of the people that are coming up in the ranks, and this was not something. I don't believe this was because of any in particular, except people had a chance to make it and advance, and I'm really happy to see where we've come, and I know we have a long way to go, but proud to be where we are in 2023.
Appreciate that sentiment. I'll echo that.
Yeah. All right. So with that said, we have a very special guest this week, Julia Perez from Owen. How are you?
Hey, good to see you. Good to be here. Doing great. Excited to chat.
And sorry I made you listen to my whole little I don't usually have monologues. Caitlin keeps me in check, but I felt like that was something I had to, get off my chest. And considering she took the episode for me a few weeks ago, and I didn't get to pontificate for a while, so it was good.
No, Brian, I love it. Really, really great, kind words, and excited to chat today about, how I got to where I'm at, and hopefully it can inspire other women out there. I'm a young CMO, and I'm excited to share and chat with you today.
That's awesome. Can you give us a little bit for the audience, a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Miami based now, but I'm New York born and spent the first 8 years of my career in New York. I always knew I wanted to be in marketing. Well, actually, that's not completely true. I was actually in fashion. I came up during the Hills era. I don't know if you were into the Lauren Conrad fashion merchandising, FIT, world. And I thought I wanted to be in fashion. And then I quickly realized that, what I love about fashion is really marketing. And it was during, MySpace, Facebook, and I had a real knack for social media, knew that there were jobs that were going to be popping up, and kind of proud of my younger self to kind of have the ability to see that foresight into what I was good at and what opportunities might be on the forefront. So
Julia, was there an aha moment there? You're in fashion and all of a sudden? Okay.
Yes, there was. I was sitting in fashion supply chain management and starting to realize that so much of what I would be doing would be about the supply chain, which exposed a lot of, ugly truths in the fashion world. Yeah, it wasn't really appealing. It kind of made me upset, honestly. And I was thinking about what my job might be if I ended up being a buyer for a bigger retail chain. And I just saw Excel sheets in my head, and that's what I was hearing the more classes that I took. And I knew that's not what I like about fashion. What I like about fashion is what's the mind state of that person getting dressed in the morning. What music are they listening to? What vibe are they trying to achieve for their day? What image are they looking to put out forward? And kind of dawned on me, that's not fashion. That's marketing. And fashion will always be a part of whatever marketing you decide to do. I realized, I can take this love for fashion somewhere else into marketing. Social media was really big at the time. And I've always had a natural, just a knack in social media and sharing my own life and personal branding. Compared to the Gen Z and the millennials of today, I'm not quite on that level. But at the time, I was an early adopter in all those social platforms and knew that brands were going to start looking for these positions. So quickly sought out. I went to a very small fashion school, and it was super competitive. And I tend to do best in those environments. I don't know why, it just fuels me to be better and do more. And I saw so many other inspiring women or young women at the time getting internships in New York City, and a light bulb went off. I got to find a social media internship, and yeah, that's what happened next. Ended up interning at a social agency that I later then received a job offer for out of college.
Nice. I think it's definitely the New Yorker in you that likes the competitive atmosphere. But before we move into your first role within the marketing space, I have a very groundbreaking question that I'm sure everyone is wondering. Team LC or Team Kristen? I mean, let's just clear the air right now. If you were a Hills watcher, what was it, Julia? This can make or break this whole conversation, so choose wisely.
Okay. Definitely LC. I was a party girl in school, and I really loved her, her drive, and I was just jealous of her internships.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take it. We can continue with the conversation. So on our pre-call, we talked a lot about where you started, which was interestingly enough, at Red Bull. Being a Red Bull girl in college, can you tell us a little bit about that and how that really jump-started transitioning from fashion into the marketing space?
Yes. What a great college job. It was truly a dream. I remember seeing other people doing it. Again, back to my competitive nature, just seeing what other cool, what I thought was cool people, quote unquote. And I saw different promotional models working at Monster or different beverage brands. And I learned quickly, I did some research. Okay, they're hired by promotional companies, but Red Bull girls are hired by Red Bull. So just applied on a whim because I saw the cars around Philadelphia, which is where I went to school. And, I quickly got called back and had an interview, and it was just a dream job because you're surrounded by, Red Bull's very specific about their hiring process. And at the time, I think they've now opened it up to men, but at the time you had to be in college and you had to be female. And they looked for, women with really driven qualities that were doing interesting things in their respective colleges. Because remember, I went to school in Philly, so there's Drexel, there's UPenn, Temple, Philadelphia University, Westchester. There's so many different schools. So right away, I think it was the perfect intro into marketing because Red Bull is one of the best companies when it comes to marketing strategy, and it's such a large company that they have the resources to really refine their strategy. I think I'm at startups now, so it's a little bit different, but just a great place to understand the framework. And we had very specific training on the type of language we can use and how we could present the Red Bull product to different consumers, and the way that we would get dressed with our different Red Bull gear and present ourselves, because a lot of the times that's the consumer's first touch point with the brand, especially in college. So yeah, it was a really great place to start from a company so spectacular as Red Bull.
And so this predated your foray into fashion, is that correct?
No, this is actually after.
This is after.
Major. Yeah, I changed my major in college once I started taking more courses. I think it was my second year. I changed my major and I went into Red Bull. And at the time I was interning in New York City at a few streetwear brands, because I had the job all through the last 2 years of school. And then I had the internship. It was a streetwear brand, Swedish streetwear brand called WSC in New York. And it was, I would say it's parallel to Red Bull in terms of like, I was interviewing a lot of professional skateboarders and snowboarders. So it was nice that those worlds were connected because they would kind of benefit each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I did some blogging and then I went to a digital agency. So
right.
that's my college intro.
It's interesting. So like Red Bull's almost like grassroots marketing, right? Almost
right.
directly to the consumer. And then you're dealing with on the streetwear side, skateboarders and really early entry into influencers.
Absolutely. And I love that you made the connection between skateboarders and influencers, because I think skateboarding is it's a phenomenon, the way that sport has always been a cultural influencer when it comes to fashion or music. Skateboarding culture really drives so many trends, and you might not know it until you're working a little bit closer to it. But I found that really fascinating and still do, even if I don't really get to explore that world anymore. But yeah, it's a great intro to influencers and surely the beginning of what that looked like for brands.
Yeah, that community is something that comes up so often. It was such a buzzword last year. And I think that world that you're alluding to is just community, and then putting that cool factor with what folks in that space really want to see, which is marketing, right?
Definitely. And I think, yeah, community is such a buzzword today. And I believe it's a bit overused because
sure,
when we think about, I feel like we've been going back to our roots in terms of like the way humans connect with brands. So what I mean by that is the early 2000s and, far before that, before the social media was everywhere and it was like an integral part of marketing, we found out about new products and beverages and food brands and all that. We found out through word of mouth and people who were influential and in real life, right? So they were doing something cool. They were in like an insider community. They had some type of charisma that, equals influence. And I just feel like we've lost that over the last few years with influencer becoming just a way to make money and almost like a career for young people now. And I think it's been, it's just gotten saturated. And what I'm seeing now for brands is it's not so much about how many followers the influencer has. Of course, it's important when you're going mass, but when we think about community, it's about finding brand evangelists that are going to talk about your brand and spread information about your brand on behalf of the brand. So we're not, we as marketers aren't doing all the heavy lifting. We have a community that knows so much about us and, is so passionate about the brand that they're out there spreading the message. So, in a way, getting back to the roots.
Yeah, so I have a question about that. So how do you kind of tap dance around, right? So you want your influencer to be representing the brand, but not necessarily selling the brand, because I think the more overt you are in the sale, the less authentic it is. And so how do you balance that?
Yeah, and Julia, before you jump in, Brian, you read my mind, because as Julia was alluding to that, I thought in my mind, #ad. And the second that I see that this person is being paid, I'm like, this isn't community, this is a paycheck. Yes. So Julia, what's your take on that and the power of a paid ad versus like the micro influencers that I think you're alluding to?
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And I think that as we craft these contracts, we have to be very mindful of that. But really, we want the influencer to share their genuine experience with it. And that's really, as marketers, we have to empower our community and our creators with the tools to just tell whatever story they need to tell about the brand. We all experience brands in different ways, right? Another thing here is I think as marketers also, we underestimate how smart the viewers are. We don't always have to say, buy at this exact link or click this, but maybe it's shifting the influencer to explain where the products are on shelf or explain what was their first touch point. I saw one of my friends drinking this and I decided to buy it. Just like really let them take the reins. But even if we're thinking like without the contracts, because again, like a lot of these brand evangelists they're not paid. They're simply going on TikTok, explaining that they found a product in a store and broadcasting it because they genuinely want people to know about it. I mean, that also goes down to the type of marketing you use and how you speak to the consumer. Like currently I'm the CMO at Owen, and we always say that our goal with our communication is to make the consumer feel like the hero. We are a sports nutrition brand, or rather a protein drink brand, a nutrition brand. And I think a lot of brands in that category preach onto their consumers. So we're we're very mindful there to make let the consumer feel like they are the hero and that they have figured this out. We don't need to talk to them as if they have no idea what a protein drink is.
Yeah, and
Julia, if I can chime in, this is Tanya, the producer. I just wanted
Producer
to ask
Tanya.
if you could if you could sort of elaborate a little more, because to what Caitlin and Brian was talking about, because we can't just dismiss the influencer just because it may be a paid ad. It's really important. Sometimes it's truly organic. If you could speak to that, because usually the influencer, the marketer really taps into that influencer has been talking about the brand way before they were even paid. And that's the beauty of the partnership, sometimes. And so that makes it more authentic, and they bring in, it's kind of the thing that like really bolsters the community aspect. So if you want to speak to that maybe a little bit, that would kind of help.
Hey, Julia, just so you know, it's like a unicorn when Tanya steps out from behind the curtain. So you should feel privileged that she actually did that and came up with this question.
I love that. Yeah, I definitely can speak to that. And in fact, it's how one of our partnerships that we worked on last year with Justin Fields. He's an NFL quarterback. That's how that partnership came to life. Justin had been a fan of the brand and drinking Owen and got into contact with us. And that further encouraged us as a brand to sign that contract because there's a genuine understanding of the brand, and and he's already drinking the product. There's a story there, and I think consumers can also catch on to that. And a lot of the influencers and partners and friends of the brand that we continue to seed product to, and this isn't just for Owen, this is for several brands that I've worked on. You discover them through them posting on their own about the brand. They're not getting paid. They're simply sharing with their followers that they love the product. And, I wish I could explain to more influencers that sharing products that you're not getting paid for shouldn't be a negative thing. That's why you are an influencer. And the more that you do that, once brands see that you're posting about the brand naturally, as marketers, it actually excites us more. Maybe I should explore something larger because there's a real story there. And the consumers catch on quickly, like, oh, I've seen this influencer post about the brand 5 times, and now it finally says ad. They're really not going to be upset by that. If anything, they're going to say, I'm glad that the creator that I follow and I'm invested in is now partnering with a brand that he or she loves. And, audiences, they're very engaged with the influencers that they follow. And I think it's only a positive thing when it can become something larger for the brand and the influencer.
Yeah, that's interesting. And by the way, I don't know if you've ever tried these Altoids. They're curiously strong peppermint, but I cannot get enough of these things.
Brian, does that mean you're considering yourself an influencer here?
I don't, but I'm hoping they listen and send me at least some free Altoids.
Maybe they'll sponsor the pod.
Oh, see? A girl can dream.
Exactly right. So tell us a little bit. I know you had some strategies coming out post-COVID on how you were marketing and what was going to differentiate and how brands were going to differentiate themselves. Tell us a little bit about what the strategy you adopted coming out of there.
Yeah. There's so many different strategies that were born in COVID, and then we had to adapt them again. I just feel like the last 3 years, it's been nonstop reiterating of what we've done as marketers, what we can do. The most important thing, I know we also talked about what we can learn from COVID. I think the brands that have done such a good job are the ones that were hopping the different opportunities that were available during COVID and then post-COVID. So when iOS was, before it was, super gated, so many brands throughout COVID were built on Meta, on Facebook and Instagram ads. And I just think it goes to show you, at Core Water, we used to have a slogan that our CEO, Lance Collins, proudly hung behind his desk. It was, "It's not the big that eats the small, it's the fast that eats the slow." And that's really stayed with me. So I think the brands that were able to hop on to Meta when it was, giving so much, I think that's obviously a really positive moment for them. And maybe they've built loyal followings from there. That's where they got their start, their acquisition. TikTok was huge during COVID, and it still is huge. I mean, there's so many, conversations that are happening right now about the ban, and everyone's asking, I think so many of us are asking one another, are you worried about it? What does this mean for marketing? I mean, for us at Owen, and it's not the be all end all, because we have so many other levers that we're pulling, but back to TikTok and what it can bring for brands. Like when we talk about influencers and democratizing reach, democratizing influence, creating brand evangelists, and turning your consumers into influencers. I mean, TikTok is the #1 place for that right now. So that's been big. And then another trend that I've been seeing is, and I don't think it's a trend at all really, but the idea of transparency. So I work in the fitness, sports nutrition, healthier for you, food and beverage space, and consumers in that category, even the ones that are first dipping their toe in, they really value transparency. And there's been so many tools that have helped consumers get closer to the brands. I just mentioned TikTok, democratizing influence. There's this whole trend of de-influencing now on TikTok, where influencers are coming on and sharing brands that they, quote unquote, don't think are worth the money or are overhyped. So again, it's giving a voice and creating more transparency and really making it so that brands need to be communicating directly with consumers, and because any of them can be influencers, about their product and about their ingredients. So one thing we've adopted is just getting closer to our consumer through that transparency, and a vehicle we've been using since COVID and continues to grow every single day is our SMS marketing channel. And we are one of the few brands, I think, in our space that are doing like a two-way SMS strategy. So we're inviting consumers to ask us questions. Hey, like, here's, have you seen this latest news in health? If you have any questions about it, our registered dietitian is here for you here to answer you. Do you have any questions about the products? We're having a sale tomorrow. Let us know. And we've seen the engagement on that channel contributes to customers that have a higher LTV. So I'm really bullish on SMS marketing from a two-way perspective.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy, and it just builds a lot of trust and, of course, puts that personal touch. We talk about it even a lot in our space, just positioning yourself more as a subject matter expert and less of someone who's trying to sell something. And I think that resonates with a lot of folks and consumers.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just there's so much noise out there from email inboxes and now, SMS, and you definitely have to just let the consumer know you're there if they have questions and if they need you. But I think our customers are smarter than we think, not us at Owen, but I think in general as marketers, and just let them come to us with the questions that they have. I also think you can learn a ton about your consumers when you do that too. So it's always something to learn. It's the qualitative is really where the beauty happens for me.
Yeah, it's somewhat generational too, I think, and I'm really putting myself out there. I'm a little bit older, and so I get a little bit more annoyed by the SMS, and I opt out a lot of times. But then I watch my daughter, who's in her early 20s, and she gets a lot from the brands that she's involved with, and I think she appreciates the updates. And so is there a strategy, by the way, when you start to target specific demographics of what works best? Is there a huge swing in strategy, or are you finding everything's coming more to center?
Yeah, I don't think the age, it's interesting what you said about the age. Your daughter probably really appreciates that her brands are letting them know are letting her know,
Absolutely.
hey, your product has been shipped, or it's been dropped off, and those shipping updates are one thing, and then just like letting her know about restocks. And I mean, that's probably very exciting to her, but I can understand that, if you're not using your phone as much, maybe it's a generational thing.
Oh no, he is. He's
So I guess some of it is because I'm getting hit everywhere. And I do appreciate I do suffer from Wismo like most normal people do. So getting the texts and alerts to where my packages, I like. It's the,
Okay.
hey, this is on sale, this is coming up, we've got a new releases. I don't need all that because I'm getting pinged everywhere. Like I feel like between Slack, Teams, email, texts.
Right.
It's just
right.
it's just
Overkill.
Overkill when I'm getting it from brands. Like, tell me where my package is. Don't necessarily have to tell me that there's a new release of product coming out. So, but my daughter loves it, and I think
Brian,
my son does as well.
And thank you for sharing that about the type of messages that you prefer. I think that's really interesting. Can I ask you if you ever make the purchase when you get a sales text? Because I think although we say what consumers report they don't like and do like, sometimes their behavior differs from what they say they don't like or don't prefer. And sometimes those texts work on the consumers that might not want it. So I tend to be wary and slicing and dicing the segments so close, because even if it might be a little bit like, all right, this is overkill, well, does it work? Do you buy it?
Yeah. So Caitlin's pointing to herself because it clearly works on her.
I'm such a
I love
sucker.
that.
I'm like, oh my God, new drop. You guys know I'm just trying to be cool over here. Like, all right, you got something new for me? I want to get it first. I want to be the person. Show me what's new for spring. I'm going to buy it.
So,
yeah, and sometimes it's overkill, but then you're happy to know if there's a promotion going on, or sometimes it's helpful to, I forgot about that brand. That's a great brand. I should head to their website soon. But it's with consumer surveys, and of course, if someone responds and says, I don't want to get the sales, I just want the shipping updates quick, easy, and we do get those responses. But yeah, I always like to ask because
I would
the text.
Yeah, I would say for me, I might be opening 10 to 20% of the texts that come through. And of those, maybe 10% intrigue me enough to click through to the website. It also depends on, what it is, the appearance of the product that's there, and if it's something that's intriguing to me. But it's getting me to even open it because I'm like, all right, I don't have time for this right now. I do get that.
There's nothing I hate more than, I don't mind the text messages because I've opted in. It's brands that I love and I'm probably a loyalist for. There's nothing I hate more than an Instagram ad that tells me, hey, look at this product, and I go there and I can't even get that product. You just baited me with a dope product. I love it. And you can't even sell it to me. Like, what is that?
Oh my gosh, it happens way
Right?
too much. Yeah,
what is that?
I haven't worked on a brand. I'm trying to think back into, my experience, but since it's in food and beverage, I haven't worked much on brands where it's like a retail, like an Urban Outfitters, or, where they have so many different products, and then you click it and the product's not there. So I don't have that problem as much in, in my arena. Sometimes we're out of stock. I've been out of stock on brands I've worked on, but I feel like it's less likely to happen when it's like not a fashion or beauty item.
Yeah, that's fair. Like CPG and like health and beauty is a little bit more straightforward. Yeah, apparel definitely is the bait and switch.
Yeah,
absolutely,
exactly right.
I have to jump in again one more time. I'm like Brian a lot, but I do get the text messages, and sometimes I'm sort of on the sidelines, not willing to pull the trigger yet, and then I see a promotion it kind of catches my eye. It's like a little too good. And I just go for it. I pull the trigger at that text where, you get the right promotion at the right time. And isn't that what it's about? It's getting that promotion right at the right time, and the person based on behaviors, they're interested. So you have an interest, Brian. You do, even though you're not. You get a little.
The marketer and Tanya coming out.
So this will sound very funny to Caitlin, but I guess I'm exhibiting self-control.
Said Brian.
As we know, that's my core strand. Well, Julia, listen, I really have to thank you for coming on. This has been fantastic. Definitely have learned a lot and appreciate getting the opportunity to learn more about you and having you on. I'm very, very happy to have you on as our last guest of our Women's History Month. So really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I enjoyed speaking with you all today.
Excellent. All right, Caitlin, walk us out.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. Check us out every other Friday at sipitandchippin.com or on your favorite podcast platform. Have a great weekend, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.